I am Claire Mitchell, Doctor of Laws and King's Counsel.
And I am Zoe Venditozzi, Doctor of Laws, teacher and writer.
On the 8th of March 2020, International Women's Day, we launched the feminist Witches of Scotland campaign. The Witchcraft Act, in force between 1563 and 1736, saw thousands of people, mostly women, accused and executed as witches in Scotland, in the country's biggest and most brutal miscarriage of justice. Our campaign had three aims: to get a formal state apology for those accused of witchcraft, to obtain a pardon for all those convicted, and to get a national memorial to remember those involved in the Witchcraft Act.
On International Women's Day 2022, the first of our aims was realised when First Minister Nicola Sturgeon issued a formal state apology to those accused as witches. The first formal state apology ever. We are currently working with politicians to ensure there is legislation passed to pardon those accused as witches, to change their status from convicted witches to those who ought never to have been prosecuted. We continue our work to obtain a national monument so those who suffered will never be forgotten. Join us as we speak to the experts on the witchcraft trials, both here in Scotland and further abroad, as we explore the history of women in Scotland and continue the cultural conversation of what it means to be a woman. Hello and welcome to the Witches of Scotland podcast. It is my great joy and jubilation to announce to you that this is in fact episode 70 of 6. I mean, it's mind-boggling. We're really aware of the fact that our output recently has been a little bit slow. Claire is very, very busy with the top layers of law. I'm very busy with really boring and mundane domestic stuff. It's not really exciting or glamorous. But we've both been bonkers busy. And I just need to reiterate at this point that it's only me and Claire. So we don't have a committee. We don't have any volunteers. It's just the two of us. And poor David, but we like it that way. We like it just being the two of us, but it means that sometimes we will slow down a little bit. So sorry about that, but we've just given ourselves a pep talk, and we're going to be getting it together and putting more episodes out very soon.
I think we promised the listeners that we would have a podcast out.
Listen,
in a fortnight last time.
Listen, it's not legally binding. Okay.
Well done, Zoe. Well done. I like that.
Doctor of Laws. I was talking to somebody during the week and they said to me, why don't you just train as a lawyer? And I was like, because it's really hard work and I don't want to. And he said, but you've already got your qualification. Don't you just need to sit a test and then that's it? And I was like, no. The Doctor of Laws is amazing, but it's not like I don't actually have a qualification in being a lawyer. I can't just do a test and then become a lawyer.
Sadly, no, but in your own mind, Zoe.
In my own mind, I've been a lawyer since I was about 11 and LA Law was on. I mean, that I'm litigating left, right, and centre in my personal life.
If only people knew.
Yes, if only people knew. Anyway, so we will put more out. Honest Gov, we'll get them out, and we've got a few really good episodes that we recorded in the summer. So we planned ahead, but then it's the actually putting them out that slowed us down. Yeah. But this is a cracker today. This is, I mean, I know I do say that, but this is a cracker today, and one of my very favourite guests, if we can say that. So you're gonna like it. It's worth the wait. Honest. So episode 70, Claire.
Yes.
What's been happening in the world?
News. Well,
that's not getting any better with the time in between, is it?
Well, Zoe, so much has been going on.
Yes.
The last time we had a podcast 4 weeks ago, and this time that we've got a podcast, that we've had to split the news up into two bits, your bit and my bit.
Yes, we've aggregated our news round.
So may I extend the question to you, Zoe? What's in the news?
Well, I'll tell you what's the news. What's the news is one of the things that's really nice about doing the podcast is that we get contacted by listeners on our different social media sort of areas. And we were contacted by a lovely listener called Rebecca Bancroft, who's probably, I said to her at the time, oh, do you mind if we use this on the podcast? And she's probably thinking they're never going to do it. But here I am getting round to it now. So lovely Rebecca Bancroft got in touch and said the following. I'm just going to read out what she wrote to me. So these are Rebecca's words, right? I thought I'd share a story of a local man accused of witchcraft from my local area of Peterhead in Aberdeenshire. Peterhead has the Peterhead Trail, in which signs have been erected in places of interest around the town with information about its history on them. There's a map you can download to do the whole trail, or if the weather is rubbish like it usually is up here, you can read the info online. I'm telling you now, the day we're recording this is a day of incredibly bonkers rain, and Claire's not in Scotland, but oh my goodness, it's been wild. Anyway, so you can look this up online if this ongoing rain apocalypse occurs to keep going. So the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft does note this particular gentleman, but doesn't appear to have the detail of his sign. His name was Alexander Hay, and she's put a link below, which we'll put out for, which is to the sign in town, which details why he was accused. Sadly, she says they do have Warlock in the title of the sign, and it swiftly moves on to how the site where Sandy was burnt was also a railway station, but it's interesting anyway. So here's the story. In the late 1500s, Sandy Hay was a blacksmith in Peterhead who had a keen sense of humour. He found fun in everything. Sadly for Sandy, his minister was not amused when he spotted Sandy laughing in church one Sunday morning, instead of paying solemn and reverent attention to the service. "Why were you laughing so much in church, Sandy?" asked the cleric sternly. And he said, "Because I saw old Nick sitting on the corner of the highest gallery and noting down on parchment the names of all present who were sleeping during divine service, but that the drowsy part of the audience increased so fast upon him that he found his parchment too small to contain all their names, on which he endeavoured to stretch it with his teeth, but losing his hold, he knocked his head with an awful thump against the wall behind him." Outraged at the suggestion that not only was Old Nick the devil in his church, but that his sermons were so boring the congregation couldn't stay awake, the minister took action. He had poor Sandy charged with witchcraft. And then, of course, fear was very real. Sandy had admitted seeing the devil in church, and his fate was sealed. For one misplaced joke, he was tried, convicted as a warlock, and met a grisly end at the stake on the Burning Green at Stony Hillock. The Burning Green lies under the present-day community centre, which is now the focus of more wholesome and healthy social activities. So it's an interesting story. Often hear about men, obviously, because of the skew towards women being accused. But I thought it was an interesting story because one of the things that we'd see time and time again is that people see themselves as being so distant and separated from those that were living in those days. And of course, we keep making the point, and academics keep making the point, they were just ordinary people like us. So the fact that somebody could be accused of being a witch, or warlock in this case, because they make like a daft joke, and it's a pretty funny joke as jokes go, I think that's quite a good one, is like mind-boggling, but also makes us see how much they were just like us. So that's our story, and thank you very much to listener Rebecca Bancroft for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. That is, what bad timing for a joke.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know he must have been a bit of a rebel to make a joke like that to the minister in the first place, to be honest, with the strangleholds we know they held on people, no pun intended. So thank you, Rebecca, for getting in touch. We also were contacted by a listener who is a really talented musician, who goes by the name of Noum, which is spelled Noum. She has created a track called Ana, A-N-A, which is inspired by a story that Noum heard while she was traveling in Guatemala. We'll be doing a deeper dive into this in a future episode, but we wanted to share the track with you just now, as I know people will be intrigued and enchanted. So thanks so much for sharing, Noum, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. And we've been talking about maybe using some of your music as part of the show, so that'll be really great. The only other thing I've got to say is to bear in mind that the Burnham Book Fest is 2 weeks today, but that's not going to help you because this won't go out today. So that's the 21st of October, the Saturday. And we are there as part of a lot of really fantastic programming where they've got various writers and historians talking about different aspects of links with witches, particularly in that area. But we'll put up links again so you can see more about that. So it'll be really nice to see people there. And we're going to be doing a live podcast record. And so we'll be putting lots of stuff up on the social media to encourage people to come along to that one. So that's all my news for today, Claire.
Okay, I have some more news. We were contacted by Jana Maguire. She contacted us on Instagram, and once again, it's only the two of us, and I do apologise if we read things and don't get back to you. What I do is I sit down every now and then and try and go through all this sort of stuff and answer them. But Jana contacted us and said that she'd been enjoying the podcast, and she said, I wanted to add a little note, a bit of food for thought about an area I grew up in. Bo'ness, not far from Edinburgh, has a hidden witch's stone.
As a teenager, she heard a lot about it, but it took till she returned to the area after having her own children that she managed to find it. It's near Carradine. Is that how you pronounce it? Carradine? Bo'ness? I'm sorry, people are probably tutting.
Carradine probably sounds more Scottish. Carradine sounds quite glamorous.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a glamorous place.
It could be a glamorous place. It's near Carradine at Bo'ness and can be found via Google now. She said she looked online thanks to you guys, us, putting a little fire in her belly, and she saw Bo'ness has 51 noted witches back in 1624 to 1679, some male, some female. So again, it's really brilliant to see people listening to the podcast and then coming up with their own investigations and finding out about their own area. It's so fantastic. In other news, we spoke at an event to the Washington DC bar, which was, it was very early law of us. Were you deep in your legal fantasy about being an
Claire,
American lawyer at that point, Zoe?
I could not have been any happier. It was such a privilege to speak to them. So they were over here doing a kind of a legal and history kind of tour. And one of the things was we went and gave them a little bit of an oversight into the Witches of Scotland. And I sat next to the most fascinating woman that, apart from you, Claire, that I've met in ages. So Claire, you were on my right, and on my left was this amazing judge. So she is the chief judge in the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, and her name is Anna Blackburn Rigsby. And my goodness, what a woman. I just sat down next to her and I just thought, oh, I love you. And I sometimes meet women that are, a little bit older than me, and I just think, could I just be adopted into your family? Because I just think she's amazing. And her mum was the first Black female judge in America. And she herself has then gone into that area and is incredibly successful, was I think initially put in place as a judge by Bill Clinton, but has been endorsed with then following that by the Bushes. And she's been in place for a long time, and just a fantastic, strong woman who was so interested in the campaign. So yeah, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and her husband as well, he's a lawyer too, wasn't he? What was so lovely about him was incredibly supportive of her. And when any chat or when any, interest was thrown his way, because he's a colonel in the army who's also a lawyer, he's an extremely interesting career. He was just pushing all the comments her way, and she was answering. I just thought they were such a couple.
Some of the conversation we had was so interesting though, because we were talking about current social sort of construct and communication, particularly from a legal point of view, obviously with me being a lawyer. So we're talking about that, but we're talking about that in comparison to what it was like socially during the witch trials, and about how in recent years some people have become emboldened, which is the word that we were using, to express ideas that 10 years ago would have been absolutely just not supported. People would have just known straight away this is just completely unacceptable. We were talking particularly about the issue of race, but we were talking about how in times of difficulty or vulnerability, then we always look for people to blame, and about the parallels obviously with that and the witch trials. So it was really fascinating to talk about that through a kind of a modern lens. And then we spoke to some other really interesting people, didn't we, Claire? We said we'd give a shout.
What is really nice is we're kind of overawed that we're speaking. I don't know why, but Washington DC lawyers seem incredibly high powered, and we were very excited to speak to them. And what was funny was people were coming up to us and going, oh, we've heard about you, or we've listened to your podcast. So we want to give a particular shout out to Leah Wentz, who came to speak to us to say, I listened to your podcast, because we were so tickled by that. So shout out to Leah. Thanks very much for listening all the way over there in Washington, DC. And we're glad you enjoy the podcast. And we also met two brilliant women called Pamela Robinson and Patricia Morrison, who were twin sisters, identical twin sisters.
I don't know. They looked identical to me, because I was looking between their two faces going, am I imagining this, or are these two women exactly the same to look at? They were lovely and really, really funny. And I had a funny conversation with them about various things. But one of the things we talked about that was quite serious was about the uncovering the links with Scotland in particular and the transatlantic slave trade. And we really spoke a lot that night about understanding your history in order to be better citizens, to be a better society. And we talked about that because they themselves are women of colour and their families have links to the Caribbean, I believe, and we're talking about that. And I was asking them if some particular stories about one person in particular that I've been writing about recently, Christian Cadell, the witch pricker, who some of you will remember was a woman who disguised herself as a man, or passed herself off as a man, to be a witch pricker. And when she was eventually found to be doing that and she got into trouble, she was actually transported to Barbados, but then there's no further information about her beyond that point. And I'm really curious about whether she made it to Barbados, and if there was any sort of, echo through time with what she'd done in Barbados. So I'm still trying to kind of look into that. I've got a couple of academics' names that I'm going to reach out to, but it was interesting to talk to him about that. But this whole idea about understanding our past, even if it's uncomfortable, even if like Scotland was involved in things that now we're absolutely horrified by, we need to know it in order to make sure we don't repeat the same stuff again.
Absolutely. Can I also give a shout out to people south of the border who might be interested in coming to hear us talk, but we usually do our talks in the north.
Yes.
To let them know that actually at the end of this month, we have been invited very excitingly to Mansfield College, Oxford.
Very exciting.
To do a public talk. So Mansfield College, I think, prides itself in looking as broadly as it possibly can at academic topics and inviting people in to speak about things that might not be perhaps just the usual sort of academic path. And we are one of the groups of people who have been invited along to speak. So we're speaking at Mansfield College, Oxford. The date of that is the 27th, Friday the 27th of October. It's in the evening and there's social media all about that. So if you're in the Oxford area, it's a free event. And if you fancy coming and listening to us, please do. We're really looking forward to it.
And then we've got the following Saturday, the 4th of November. Please tell me that that's right.
It is.
Where we're in London talking at the British Library, aren't we?
We are indeed. My God, we've got around a bit. No wonder we're not able to record podcasts all the time.
Oh, we've got a very busy sort of burst of activity, which I'm really excited about, but it means that October is pretty bonkers.
Yeah, it is. October's pretty bonkers. November's pretty bonkers as well.
Well, that's okay. If there's two ladies that can deal with bonking, no. Let's move on, Claire. I've actually blushed. Claire can see on the Zoom. I've gone pink.
What's also funny is this today that we're recording, we've fitted it in early in the morning. So we're both sitting here in our PJs recording this.
Oh, is it clear that these are my PJs? These are my
sorry.
They're like my formal PJs.
Well, I'm glad that we've met up in Zoom with your formal PJs, but yes, I can confirm those still look like a pair of PJs.
They're very nice. They're black with white piping around the edges. I like them. I feel like a kind of a sleepy butler.
And ladies and gentlemen, I am channeling my 1951 Oscar-winning movie,
Leopard Print.
Yeah, that's
Leopard Print.
That's one.
I was having a slight run-in with a child in school a couple of weeks ago who had never met before, and it was it was quite heated because women, the two of us, and she went away and she said to another colleague, she went, "Who's that teacher from your department? She's always wearing leopard print," and that's how she was able to identify who I was. It's like a Bet Lynch type of a vibe, I think.
Yeah, but leopard print is, leopard print's just saying to people, I'm furry, I'm docile, but don't get on the wrong side of me, because I am a very angry cat.
I am an angry cat, even with my HRT patch.
Yes.
Ridiculous. Yes. Anyway, I'm not really angry.
I was wondering whether or not you could double up your HRT patch to give you like super estrogen. Does that work?
I'll tell you this. No, you can't. And I've Googled it.
Seriously, because let us tell you, ladies and gentlemen, now, although we are doctors of law, let us tell you that we definitely are not doctors of medicine.
Now, Claire, I'm just going to pause you there, okay?
Oh, no. Zoe
I'm
is
not
delusional, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not I'm obviously not a medical doctor. Okay, obviously not. However,
Oh no.
I did watch every single episode of ER. My granddad was a doctor. I've said this before, and I'm going to say this till the day I die, probably in medical malpractice situation. My dad was a dentist, so I come from a fairly medical background. I feel quite confident I could deliver a baby. That's my top medical skill.
Zoe,
I've had 3 of them.
We've talked about intergenerational trauma. Do you think you've got intergenerational medical training?
Yes, I do. I feel by osmosis, I could do a certain array of medical things.
I mean, one of the things that I find, very attractive about you, Zoe, is your natural confidence.
My can-do attitude.
It's your can-do attitude, and it's that attitude that is sometimes attributed to white middle-class men simply because they can do everything.
I
really enjoy it with you.
I feel if mediocre men can go around showing temerity all the time, why can I not do that also? I feel fairly confident I could deliver a baby. I think I could probably do that thing where you have to use...
a tracheotomy. I know what you're going to say.
Where I could use the shell of a bic. I think I could do that.
Do you know she threatened me that if I ever am choking, she'll perform a tracheotomy. Now, ladies and gentlemen,
I'm in
her company, I only eat tiny, tiny bits of food because see, at the slightest cough, she would be there with her bic stabbing my neck.
To be fair, I would be behind you first and break your ribs in an attempt to Heimlich you into life. But then I would move on to what I needed to do.
Listen, if this ever happens, I can hear that this thing being read out or in a transcript or actually played in court by your defence counsel trying to explain why you killed me, Zoe.
I didn't choose the medical saviour lifestyle. The medical saviour lifestyle chose me. Okay, you need to know that. Can you see,
ladies and gentlemen, why it takes us so long to record a podcast? Because there are just so many diversions that we go on.
I know. Right, let's get back to business. Sorry. Right.
So,
any more business?
Yes. Well, I have got some news, and it's news that many of our followers maybe already know because they've gone and checked. But I think it's important to highlight. The Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, Zoe, which is, one of our most important documents where we get so much of our stuff, has had a facelift. And it is much easier to navigate, much easier to get info from. And it's got new sections. So I thought I'd highlight a few of the new sections so people go and look.
It's fab. One of our very good friends, Leonie Bell, her daughter, Ruby Imrie, was one of the people. She's a computing student at Edinburgh University, and she spent her summer interning on the working on the revamp. And then we got the chance to be kind of like beta testers. And one side actually worked out how to use my computer to do what Ruby was telling me. And I'm sure Ruby was going, oh my God, this is tedious. One side worked it out. It is fantastic. It's so much clearer now. It's really, really good.
And it gives you lots of different sort of areas to look at things. One thing that I really liked was it puts into modern standardized surnames some of the expressions of names that are there. Now, some of them are really difficult because they're phonetically spelt, so you can't really work it out. And I noted that both our maiden names were there.
You've got a maiden name?
Well, I have. It's
You're
the same name as I've got now. It's
yeah, you're still a maiden.
I'm on my maiden voyage, Zoe.
Which maiden name of mine? Like my
Johnson,
yeah. I mean, that's my maiden name.
How many other maiden names have you got?
Well, because I think of myself as having various names. Like because I think about my
your actual names in ordinary life, Zoe.
In the law. Yes, Johnston. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Johnson's in there. So it's also got standardized modern names, so it tries to translate names where you can. And I was looking recently on TikTok and I saw a woman whose whole job it is to look and give you names for your family. So the names of your children will, go well together or have a common theme or something like that. And
that as a job?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, God, here we go. Yeah, but you'd have to give up your medical practice, Zoe.
I could fit it in. Deliver a baby. name the baby.
Yeah, but
legally do something about the baby.
Yeah. Yeah, give the baby a tracheotomy if necessary.
But the baby won't need that because it'll be so successfully delivered. It'll be fine.
It'll only be me that needs a tracheotomy. Okay, I see where we're going here. But it gives you standardised modern first names. Now, some of the names I really love. Some of them are, a wee bit odd. But if you're looking for some unusual Scots names to name babies, you should definitely look there. I saw one which I really loved called Finwell. Because Finn is a Scottish name. I like Finwell.
Never heard that before.
Jokka, Jokka. Begis, Begis.
These are Scottish names.
Yeah. Crystal. There was a Crystal.
Yeah, I think I've taught a Crystal in the past. Crystal Carrington also.
And also Henwife, which I quite liked.
What? That was a first name?
Yeah.
Henwife.
Henwife Johnston.
Shut up.
And Crystal Mitchell. No, I've just put those names together. I thought I'd just give you Henwife for a laugh.
Henwife, God.
It's just a really unusual, but there are loads of unusual names. Oh, one of the unusual first names was Beak.
That's interesting because I was having a conversation with Judith Langland Scott, our good friend, and we were talking about sort of accusations of witches, and she was saying that one of the things that happened was they were given a new name when they were rechristened or unchristened by the devil, when they were taken in by the devil, and Beak sounds more like one of those kind of names.
Oh, yeah, because something beaky, rosy. Just as an aside, I went very recently to see the Gunpowder Plot in London.
Yeah,
and it's interactive. Firstly, it's my first experience with virtual reality, putting the goggles on. That was brilliant. I loved that. But it was the story of James after he'd decimated Scotland, getting rid of lots and lots of women who weren't witches.
By James, you mean King James, the first?
Yes, indeed. I just think of him as James at this stage. Yeah. And then he came down to England and was causing lots of trouble there. And it was about the Gunpowder Plot, but it was really, really interesting. And if you're down there, definitely go and see it. Anyway, I don't know why I went to that aside. Anyway, the other interesting part that I love, because Zoe and I both have a love of finding out about words and their derivation, is a glossary of some really interesting words. Now, the glossary is huge. The first thing that caught my eye was Airt and Peart, which is our modern day, what we call, is still very old language we use in criminal law, art and part, which basically means if you're acting along with someone else and involved in it, therefore equally criminal liable, we call it art and part. If you're art and part involved in something. They called it Airt and Peart, which is not very difficult to see where we got that from. But there are some words which I thought were really interesting. And I'm going to here attempt a wee idea, Zoe, where I'm going to ask you what you think they mean.
Okay.
Brace yourself, listeners. This is going to be, wild. Okay. Borrowing days. Zoe, what does borrowing days mean?
Absolutely no idea. Like that just makes me think about special days you can go to the library.
Yes, that's not what it is. So our special days you can return the books as an amnesty because they're over by 5 years.
Yes.
No, borrowing days are what are the last 3 days of March, and it comes from a fable that March borrowed 3 days from April.
Okay.
Do you know that fable?
Never heard that in my life. And this is a Scottish thing.
This is a Scottish thing. So the last 3 days of March are called borrowing days. Didn't know this. Now,
are these just interesting things that you've just discovered on your travels, Claire?
No, I've discovered them from the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft. That's got this.
So it has. I didn't realise that it had this at all. So the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft has got stuff about language and the way that language is developed.
But this is the new stuff, Zoe.
Oh.
Yeah, this is their new
info
that they've got. So, okay, I'm going to try another one with you. Bierricht.
Now,
Bierricht.
I do know what this means. And the only reason I know what this means is because I've been writing about it recently. And again, it was with reference to Christian Cadell, because that's the idea that if you brought the accused next to the body, like the dead body that they'd been accused of killing through witchcraft, that it would bleed if they interacted with it. So if they like laid their hand on the body, that the body would still bleed. It was one of the cases that I think it was Christian Cadell. It was either Christian Cadell or John Kincaid, where that, no, sorry, it was John Kincaid, that there's documented evidence where that was one of the things he was involved with, one particular case. That's bonkers.
Listener, she is absolutely correct. It's described in the glossary as when a corpse bleeds when touched by the person who was guilty of their murder.
I wonder if that idea stopped after the witch trials. I wonder if that's something that was only thought of in terms of a witch being next to the body, or if that was a thing that existed after that in legal cases, like that would be like a proof, quote unquote, of a murderer brought into the body.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find out. I hope so. I hope that ended then, but I actually don't know. So I'm going to, I will look that up, although I'm not sure how I will look up. Okay, here's the last one. This is my favourite, because I'm going to try and bring it back into common parlance.
All right.
Zoe, somebody has been put to the horn. I don't know why it makes me want to say that in a kind of posh, he's been put to the horn. But
it actually, to me, it puts me more in the mind of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer.
Okay. No, not that type of horn.
I have absolutely no idea, but I feel compelled to stand up and start rubbing my thighs really vigorously, like Vic used to do on Shooting Stars.
Okay, I'm glad that that's not what it is. Being put to the horn is being declared an outlaw, usually for non-appearance at a trial. So if you're a witness or an accused person and you've been cited to attend court and don't attend, people usually say, we usually say in criminal law, FTA, failure to appear. You'd write that down in the notes, FTA, failure to appear. But can you imagine?
I sometimes write that on medical notes as your DOA. That means dead on arrival.
For the avoidance of doubt, once again, Zoe is not either a lawyer or a doctor.
Or indeed a witch, which I'm very much sounding like the stereotype of it. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So I'm just going to try and bring that back into common parlance.
It's the horn.
I'm going to say, Miss Mitchell, is your client here today? No, lad, he's been put to the horn.
So what do you think that means? That then, I'm imagining them. I know they wouldn't have done this, but tooting a horn because the person.
That's what I'm thinking. Exactly, a bit like the sound for in the news, but just one long continuous he's an outlaw. Catch that man. That kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So thankfully, that's not going to be one of our new parts to this podcast, although it would be quite funny just to listen to us stumbling through what words meant, because you do get an insight into what's going on in our minds.
Yeah, it's a bit like a Rorschach test.
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
So other important categories in the newly updated survey of Scottish witchcraft include things like whether or not the accuser of the woman accused of witchcraft was male or female. Whether or not they were arrested, whether or not they were interviewed, whether or not they were kept for watched and waking. So it tries to give you as much deconstructed information as possible.
That's fascinating. It's such a wonderful, wonderful resource. And we are definitely going to get you in on from the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft. And also be good to get, I think, Ruby in too, to talk about what the team were doing to update it and where they got their ideas from and how they kind of smoothed it all out, because it is much more easy to use now. And I just think we're so incredibly lucky that it's free. We're able, it's
Absolutely.
such a fantastic research tool. How lucky are we live in an age where things like that can actually be accessed for free, and long may it continue, because knowledge is power.
Not only accessed for free, Zoe, but accessed with anyone that has got a mobile phone or a laptop. You can sit there and I wonder what put to the horn means. Quick Google, declared an outlaw.
I think it's amazing. I just think it's amazing.
And moving on swiftly, because we've tarried quite a while with our previous in the news items.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Yes.
To
the names of people that were women, not witches.
Indeed.
Okay.
So we have used the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft to identify 2 people who were accused of the same things. And it sounds like a funny thing. It obviously was not a funny thing, but it just shows you the detail in which the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft can break down and identify different allegations and put them together. And it was one of the allegations that I saw that I thought, surely, how many people said that they had done this when they were being questioned, when they're being tortured? And so I went down a rabbit's hole, because the allegation, Zoe, was as part of the demonic pact. Not only did they renounce their baptism, not only did they swear allegiance to the devil, but in order to seal the deal, as it were, oh dear, I've gone down a very dark path, they kissed the devil's bottom. And
tasteful.
It is. But obviously these were things that people were thinking of, what's the most horrible thing?
Yeah.
What's the most horrible and awful thing that I can think of to do? And so I looked at 1 or 2 of the accusations there, and I thought, actually, some of these stories are very interesting, particularly the second one, who was a man called Andro Man, which we'll come to. I think we've covered part of his story before, but not this part. So the first person who said, as part of her, inverted commas, confession, that she had kissed the devil's bottom as part of the demonic pact was an Isabel Oig. Her name's O-I-G-E. So I'm saying Oig, but I'm not sure if that's correct. Her case began in 1597, and it appears from the designation of her interrogators that this is an Aberdonian case. She was accused, quite terribly, of being able to cause storms by hanging a beetle from a thread and whispering words to it. I mean, we sometimes say to people, or you sometimes say when you're reading a book, Zoe, don't you, where did they come up with that idea? But, in everyday life, when people's imaginations are allowed to go where they want, people come up with all sorts of ideas.
Do you think that it was that the beetle was the devil, that's how the devil appeared to her?
I don't know.
Is it her familiar?
It's possible. That's possible.
Yeah.
It doesn't make out, but it says anyway. She was able to cause storms by hanging the beetle from a thread and whispering words to it. She was also accused, Zoe, of having a special green thread, to wait for it, bewitch cloth, so that cloth would sell at market. So, to entice people and bewitch them to buy that. So, 2 other women had a share in the cloth that Isabel Oig promised them, and she promised them that it would get a good price at market. The woman asked her how it would get a good price at market, and she said that she had enchanted the cloth with green thread. So basically, she's the owner of the cloth wholesale. She is passing on to women to say, buy my stuff and sell it at the market. And they say, well, how do we know this is going to sell? And she says, don't worry, ladies, I've enchanted it. Yeah. And the cloth was sold at market when other people's cloth was not. And therefore, lo and behold, she must be a witch. Now, what's really interesting about that is I wondered about the women who were going to sell that cloth at market, because they would be emboldened by the idea that their cloth was so bewitching that people would want to buy it. And I wondered whether or not it would have a kind of the placebo effect, where they were so bold about how great their cloth was, and that they just encouraged people subliminally to come towards their cloth and buy this cloth. In the alternative, people had never seen cloth with green string and thought, oh, that's unusual, I'll buy that. But in any event,
Or it's just circumstantial evidence, Claire, and somebody just wanted to buy the cloth and nothing to do with anything.
I mean, the lawyer speaks.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
hate to bring you back on point, but it's an odd thing. What I like about that, I don't like. What's interesting to me about that story is that it's so domestic. It's just such a a low key, ordinary story. Like her familiar isn't like a massive stag. It's not like a big creepy cat. It's a beetle. It's just a little ordinary thing. And that it's about selling a piece of cloth at market, and it just really speaks the desperation and sort of the paucity of I don't know, security.
absolutely.
It's over such a small thing, and that people were so convinced that she was then in league with the devil because of that.
Well, listen, people were convinced she was in league with the devil, but here's a really sad part to this story. So the jury found her guilty of using a beetle to change the weather and marking the cloth with green thread, but the jury didn't think that what had happened meant that she should die. And what they said when they returned their verdict was that although they'd found her guilty of witchcraft, they don't think that she should have got the death penalty. Sadly, the judge disagreed and sentenced her, and indeed she was strangled and burned on the 24th of the 4th, 1597, at a place which is just designated as the Hills.
Where was that again?
That was
Aberdeen.
somewhere in Aberdeenshire.
Yeah, crumbs. Okay.
The Hills. So the next person that was involved in an allegation of kissing the devil's bottom was a man called Andro Mann, Androman. And as I say, I think we've covered this story before. The name was familiar to me. He was an older man, estimated about 70 years of age. And he claimed that the Queen of Elfin, so the Queen of the Fairies, came to him when he was only a small boy. The unusual thing about his confession, apparently, was that it was witnessed by 10 local lairds. That means that over the period of time where he was being interviewed, where he was being kept awake, there were no less than 10 of the local senior men that were brought in to hear his confession. This was in Aberdeenshire again. And it was in a place called, now I'm going to get this wrong, it's spelt Cults.
Oh, that's Cults.
Is it just as it's pronounced?
Yeah, that's just a place.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it would have some. I
think it is. I mean, that's how I've said. I worked in Aberdeen for a little while. I'm sure people will correct us if I've got that wrong, but I remember people saying Cults.
It's Cults. Okay, well that's good. I mean, after I was so badly thrown off after Curus, which is spelled Culross, I thought that can't be as straightforward. But anyway.
Now I feel a bit like maybe I've been a bit too definite there. It probably isn't pronounced that way at all. Maybe it's Queets or.
Please let us know if we've been wrong about that. So again, this is an Aberdeenshire case, as I said, and there seems to be very good record keeping of that. So we also know the name of the prosecutor, which can now be searched on the database. That's another thing that can be searched, so you can find the prosecutor and then you can find out what cases they prosecuted, which is interesting. Apparently they found the devil's mark on the third finger of his right hand. He kissed the devil's bottom, and it is recorded the word sex. Now, Julian Goodyear told us a long time ago that men would not have had sex with the devil in their...
Because they just absolutely would not even consider the idea of men having sex with other men. Yeah, like the idea of women having sex, obviously, with the devil's completely fine. But the idea of men and men together was just so abhorrent to them that they wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah. So this poor Mr. Andoro man, it just says the word sex, and it said we don't know if he witnessed it or had sex with the devil. It said Andoro man, wait, get this, hit animals with a bird to cure them. Now, yeah, exactly.
Bird, is it?
I think it must be a dead bird, I'm assuming. And also, what he got was black wool and salt as a remedy for disease. And this is the bit that we've covered before. He put 4 stones in the 4 corners of a ward. A ward is a piece of land, to protect the crops and the goods. So what he would do is essentially put down 4 things that he'd put a spell on in the corners of each to protect them. And unfortunately for him, he confessed to witchcraft, but his confessions were so fantastical and lurid. Maybe that's why we have so much record of what he said, because he talks about things like he put a man 9 times through a piece of yarn, transferred sickness into a cat by doing so, which he put backwards through the same piece of yarn. He summoned the Queen of the Elves, and he claimed if an iron plough was dipped in salmon water, it would help the oxen from running away. So he either had all of these fantastical ideas about spells, etc., or these have been attributed to him, or he was just absolutely crazy.
But you know what's quite interesting, and it's something I'd like to talk to somebody at some point in the podcast about this. But like this kind of like grey area between being a charmer and then being a witch, you know, like, and I know that charmers obviously weren't in league with the devil, and that's when he became a witch, was when the devil got involved with it. But these sound very much like the things that charmers would do, you know, the stones in the corners, and you know, the wool and salt and that sort of thing, you know, like they you know, I suppose the intent is different. If you're involved with the devil, you're doing these things, you know, for nefarious things, I suppose. But yeah, it sounds like people would just make things up, like you would crack. Like your brain would crack and you would just start anything up to get people to leave you alone.
I think, and I hope I'm not wrongly recording history, but this is just my thoughts. I think that this guy probably was a charmer of sorts, because if it was said that he was doing these things with stones, and you know, people were going to him for help, that's exactly what he sounds like he was.
And then it just crossed over into he displeased somebody, or one of these charms went wrong or something like that, and then they were like, well, he's obviously in league with the devil. And then of course, being kept awake and tortured, he just said that he was, so it would stop.
And he also said that he kissed the devil's bottom, which is where we started from. So
I don't believe he did say that.
Well, you know, all these things have been attributed to him. Who knows, I suppose. But today we remember 2 people, a woman and a man, who were just folk, people, not witches, women, not witches, as we say, Isabel Ogie and Andrew Mann. And now we move on to today's guest, Zoe.
Oh, very exciting. I love this guest. She's so interesting and engaging. And the book that she's talking about today, you should absolutely, if you've not already bought it, go out and buy it. She's also doing various events. So if you get a chance to go and see her, she'll be talking as well, I believe, at the British Library on the 4th of November. So we're looking forward to seeing her again, because we did an event with her back like a year past summer. The guest today is, I'm delighted to introduce Professor Marion Gibson. Hello, I am absolutely delighted, as is my wife, Claire. Sorry, that sounded like the beginning of a wedding speech.
My wife and I
are delighted to have you back on the show again, Marion. It's very exciting because we love what you do and we quote you frequently when we talk to other people. And you're definitely one of our favourite academics, because you explain things in a really nice, straightforward way, and also get the fact that there's a female angle to this, which not all historians are into.
Hashtag
Zoe, thank you.
Not all historians. It's funny how it's a woman historian that gets it.
Yeah.
It is odd, that, isn't it?
I found myself saying on a couple of talks that I've given recently, you know, and some historians don't see it as a gendered issue. But I'll tell you this, Professor Marion Gibson sees it as a gendered issue. And then I always name check you, and all the women in the audience go, oh, yes. So
I'm glad to hear I'm a thorn in everybody's side. That's basically what I get up for.
So, Marion, you're on here to talk about your latest publication. So can you tell us what that is and what our listeners should know?
Well, I hope there'll be listeners and readers. That's what we're all aiming for, right, isn't it? So it's called Witchcraft, A History in 13 Trials. And it covers a very broad range of time, which at times when I was writing the book, I wished I hadn't started, really. So it goes for 700 years. You can see why I was a little bit taken aback by the ambition of what I had decided to do there. So we start in 1485. with a witchcraft case in Austria. And that's the one involving somebody who you will know very well, Heinrich Kramer, the author of Malleus Maleficarum. So we talk about one of the women who stood up to him, which is really cool. And then we move forward, and the first half of the book is about witches in the 15th to 18th.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask? Sorry, Marion. Is the woman that stood up to him the one that there was a public meeting and she said, "This is a load of nonsense," and he said, "You're a witch"?
Effectively, yes. That does sum it up reasonably well. There you go. She's called Helena Schäuberin. And I think readers will want to know about her. She's a very cool woman.
Mm-hmm.
We should have dinners in her honour. I mean,
yes, we should.
If it could all have just been nipped in the bud there, if somebody had said, "Look, this is a load of nonsense, stop harassing women," then it would have been so much better for us all.
Yeah, if she'd won. I mean, she does win in a sense. Yeah, so it's not a complete gloom fest, but she doesn't win. She doesn't. Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
Right. It's in the book, Claire. You have to read the book.
Yeah, you have to read the book. You see. This is what's called a spoiler, if I tell you.
It's too much. I'm sorry, it's too much for a lawyer to hear about 13 trials, none of which I'm allowed to know the detail of.
No, you're really not. No, I'm going to withhold it all. Isn't that mean?
So the first half of the book deals with what then?
Yeah, the first half of the book deals with kind of the 15th to 18th centuries, basically. So we look at some cases that readers might have heard of. So people like the victims of the Witchfinder General trials in the 1640s in England. Again, some people who you'll know very well, Annie Sampson and Gilly Duncan, the two of the, quotes, North Berwick witches. We look at those and we end up that first section of the book with Salem, 1692. And then in part 2, and this is where the book kind of goes off-piste a little bit from your regular history of witchcraft, I thought I'd look at bringing it up to date. So what does witch mean now? What does witch trial or witch hunts mean now? And that's something we've heard a lot about in the news recently. So the book goes forward from the 18th century to the present, looking at people who've either been accused of witchcraft, in reality, so people literally think they are witches, or they've been accused in some sort of metaphorical way. So we've got a spiritualist medium who was on trial. People might know about her, Nellie Duncan, another Scot.
Hellish Nell.
We talk about her. And then we talk about a man who was accused of witchcraft in the 1920s in America, and in that case was actually murdered, and somebody else was put on trial as a witch for murdering him. So whoa.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And I love the modern angle, or the more modern angle. So that, I mean, presumably, I am not a historian, presumably you wouldn't tend to deal with things as recent, I guess. So a bit of a departure for you.
It is a bit of a departure, yeah. And I brought it right up to date with Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels. So that really felt like that is well out of my comfort zone. But
brilliant.
I felt like I had to do it because, of course, he has repeatedly said he is the victim of a witch hunt. I do not agree with him, but it's very interesting that he has picked that term. And Stormy Daniels, meanwhile, his antagonist actually says that she is a witch and a pagan. So I thought, well, that's fascinating. You really have to explore that, right?
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Wow.
Until I started looking at that case and I just thought, oh, okay, you have to tell this story, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, she couldn't really be more perfect, actually, then, as the kind of a foil to him. That's amazing.
Yes, it was very, very neat. It felt like that was meant, really. We were definitely meant to end up there. So and that again, one, I think you probably know, Claire. I think you probably know where that one ends.
But again, as ever, we've just been interviewing somebody else very recently, and we were talking about how a lot of it hinges on sex and sexual repression. It's this whole idea about the fear of women, the contempt for women as they're not sexually viable, or if they don't make themselves sexually available. There's just so much of that in the background of a lot of these stories. I know not always, but there just does seem to be such an issue about fear of women and their sexuality.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Stormy Daniels, brings that right to the fore of the stories. Absolutely. So you know where you're going with that one.
I've just Googled Stormy Daniels and witch, and there's there's a whole like Reddit section. Stormy Daniels is the baddest witch. Witches v the patriarchy. I'm going to read that.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
There's a famous tweet that she put out when she was somebody had taken her to court for something, and she put out a tweet saying, "What do you wear to a witch trial?" And she's very, very good at talking that kind of language.
Listen. Did you get a chance to speak to Stormy Daniels?
No, I didn't. I thought about it. Obviously, I mean, I would like to do that. I thought about it, but I thought I haven't got the chance to speak to anybody else who's a witch or accused witch or a witch hunter in the book. So probably what I need to do is maintain some distance and tell the story from that
also
point
for
of
parity, you'd probably have to attempt at least to speak to Donald Trump. And could you imagine how awful that'd be if actually you did speak to him? And it'd be exactly the sort of thing he would do to be weird, and then you'd have to talk to Donald Trump, and I don't think any book's worth that.
I don't think it would really go anywhere, that would it?
Yuck, puke.
But Zoe, we don't need parity. So what if we read Marion's book and then say we've been inspired by Professor Gibson? Can we speak to you about witches and witchcraft trials? Come on,
that'd be interesting.
Go on.
Obviously, Marion, you'd have to be on that podcast, obviously.
Yeah. If you manage that, I will be delighted, because I would genuinely like to know what she has to say.
Yeah. And the book's out now, so that's okay. So it's all right.
It is.
Yeah. So did you discover, I mean, you must know pretty much everything there is to know now, but did you discover anything new or anything surprising when you were researching?
Yeah, loads. This is the thing, you see. Well, you do start thinking, okay, I know quite a bit about this, and then you read some more and you think, oh no, wait, there's all this other stuff. I found out loads of stuff. I mean, there's a chapter later on in the book about witch trials in contemporary Southern Africa, and I sort of themed it around. You remember that film "I Am Not a Witch" from 2017? I sort of themed it around that. So I started with that, thinking, oh well, I've seen this film, so I have some sense maybe of where to begin this story.
But
it was a lot harder than I thought. It was. That's right.
Yeah, I love that film.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic film.
So for listeners that haven't seen that, it's really, really worth seeking out. It's kind of magical. It's not a documentary, but there's stuff in it that is true stuff, and it's a really visually interesting film as well. It's definitely worth watching. It's a good one.
It's a beautiful film, and the director Rungano Nyoni, she researched it really carefully, so it does talk about things that really happen. And it's set in Zambia, and it sort of draws from trials across different countries for the experience of this little girl. And so I thought that would be a great place to start. But once I wandered out beyond that, I found out all sorts about the kind of trials that are going on, and just the sheer numbers of people who are being accused. I know you've spoken to people like Leo Igwe, haven't you, about this issue? And yeah, I was genuinely shocked by the scale of witchcraft persecution in contemporary countries.
We're also going to speak to somebody on the podcast that we met when Zoe and I were given our Doctor of Laws at the University of Dundee. Zoe's like, did we, Claire?
No, it's more like, Claire, you're such a show.
Can't help it. I'm so proud of it.
It's a good thing.
Oh, it was so kind of them. We're so made up. But we met on that particular day, and it just shows you how good it is to bring people together from completely different worlds. A doctor who was getting another Doctor of Laws in relation to climate change. And we spoke to him, and he was explaining to us that in his country, there were witchcraft accusations because of climate change, because people did not understand the changes in the weather that were happening. And lo and behold, we have 21st century weather witches, people being accused of changing the weather when it's actually down to climate change.
That's
Professor Sturgeon, who's in Malawi. So the stuff he was talking about, and I was talking to a Kenyan lawyer recently who was saying to me that pre-colonialism, the colonizers, there was always an understanding, like a sort of a cultural, spiritual understanding about magic, and it wasn't seen as necessarily being something that had to be punished. It was just something that existed. And it just really sort of made me think about it. And I'd really like to get somebody on that is a historian about colonialism that knows about that, like how much of it was that there wasn't an issue until the Europeans arrived, and then there was an issue because they brought all that crap with them. And
that's the kind of thing I say in the book. Yeah, but I really wouldn't claim to be the expert at all. I'm sure that there are lots of people who know more, but I do think it's a completely legitimate argument. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think before European missionaries went there, taking with them demonology among all the other things. I mean, many of the things that they brought with them were well meant, stuff like maternity clinics and schools and all of this kind of thing, but they also took with them demonology, and that's a terrible curse rather than a gift.
Which is when we went to see it, is a handy size for travel. I always thought it was like a Disney book of spells, one of those giant things that was like you wouldn't fit in a backpack, but it turns out to be a pamphlet, so easy to carry.
Yeah, it's true.
That's wonderful. A travel size demonology. A fun size demonology. How lovely.
You could imagine them like traveling about, whether it's across continents or it's around Britain, around England, around their beat as witch finders or as prickers or whatever, with them having that on them, as a how-to. It's like a Lonely Planet guide, but like witches and how to, horrifying. But
it is horrifying.
It was a guide.
A really interesting example of how the written word can have so much power, and that was just held up.
Yes.
I did an event recently where I was talking to a group of American lawyers, and one of the things we talked about was the King James translation of the Bible, and whether he had, because of his sort of leanings, shall we say, whether the translation was sort of tilted towards his worldview, like thou shalt not suffer a witch, if it was actually the word witch was there, or if it's an interpretation of something that maybe wasn't a witch. So if like a theological translation expert, just let me know.
Yeah, that would be interesting too. And again, that's not me. But it would be great to talk to somebody about that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So when you moved sort of through the first half of the book with the early things, did all the characters, well, they're not characters, the real people, the people that you wrote about, had you known of them previously, or did you find some as you're researching?
About all the ones in part one, I guess, but some of them I didn't know very well. So one of the chapters is about the Norwegian witches that Liv Elaine Williamson has written about. I don't know if you've come across her in your travels.
We've recently interviewed the writer Anya Bergman that wrote
Yes.
Bardo. So that
right.
book's all about that, and she did lots of research with the writer, the historian that you're talking about. Yeah,
that's right. And also we must give a shout out to the two people in Orkney that did the Orkney Memorial, because a lot of their work was underpinned by Liv's work too.
That's lovely. Yeah. And I didn't know as much about that as some of the others. And then again, that was a real journey of discovery. And I ended up talking about the Indigenous woman who was initially accused in that case quite a lot. And I sort of paralleled her with Tituba from the Salem witchcraft trials. And what I tried to do was, as far as you can, give them back some sense of their own history, their own autonomy, and try to see it a bit less through the eyes of the colonizers who accused them. And I renamed Tituba as well. And again, it's really an attempt to kind of give her back something other than the story that is told over and over and over again about her. So I've called her Tatabay because initially the enslaved child who was found in the records in Barbados, who does seem to be the girl who grows up into our woman, who's then accused in Salem when she's taken there, that girl was called Tituba. And then fast forward to the end of Tituba's trial, when, and this kind of is a spoiler, but people probably know this one by now because it's a really famous case. She gets released from jail. She gets released under the name Tatabay. It's not spelt Tituba, and her name's spelt like 7-9 different ways during the course of the trial. So I thought, well, why not pick the one with which she starts and exits her trial and call her that instead? And maybe she did call herself that, maybe she didn't. I don't know. But at least it gives you a different way into that trial. I've tried in each case to shape things up a bit and give readers something new. She's not just this stereotyped idea that we have in the culture, sort of the popular culture about what happened in there. Yeah, that was the idea. I like that. Yeah. I'm not sure I've always got it right. I mean, I hope readers will find it really interesting, but I also just want to sort of push them to have their own ideas and to come back and say, no, I think this should have been like this, or why didn't you talk about that one? Can we have something about that one? But I tried to pick them so that the stories talk to each other, and each one offers either new records, or it offers a different interpretation, or it throws something in that's a bit surprising and gets you to think about, so okay, what does witch mean then? What does witch mean now? What's the journey it's gone on?
I don't know if it's possible for me for like the third or perhaps fourth podcast in a row to go, I recently saw The Crucible. So my brother may cut this out. He's like, Jesus Christ, okay, you saw The Crucible, get over it. But what I was really interested in the one that I saw, I mean, it was amazing. And if there's any opportunity for you to go and see it, or see it online if that's available,
see it.
Do that. But what was really interested me about it, because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, I suppose, was in the one that certainly they showed. I don't know how true it was to form, but Tituba hardly had any part in it. I think she had maybe like 2 or 3 lines. And she appeared to be the catalyst for the girls being out in the forest dancing and singing. But her part literally in The Crucible is completely sidelined with a different story. It's interesting that, I mean, I know it's the story that's made up in The Crucible is entirely made up. Names are borrowed, but the story is made up. But I just thought it was funny that she played such a small part in it, of something that in real life she played such a big part in.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, and the Crucible's always held up, isn't it, as the great example of showing that witch trials are about persecution and reframing them for modernity. But it still was written in the 1950s, so it still does have a lot of baggage. Whether that is about race or gender or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, it shows you that witch trials aren't real. Yeah, but it's basically the story of a child being abused by an older man and then her manipulating the situation to cause death and carnage. It's kind of like, I mean, yes, it is an absolutely great play, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot with the modern eye that is wrong with the way it's presented in a story.
Yes, there is. It is a very problematic play. I thought one of the great things that production did actually was just turn things around a little bit and give the women a bit more. The female characters were a lot more empathetic, it seemed to me, than they often are in productions like Crucible. And I felt like the director and cast had wanted to focus on that, because they too were probably a bit fed up with the kind of classic reading that, Abigail is a very naughty girl and a bit witch-like, and isn't it all her fault really, instead of isn't it all the quotes witch's fault?
No, sorry, Zoe.
No, I was just going to say, as an English teacher, I think it's just really important for us always to say, with a fictional text like that, if it's from the 50s, we don't read it as if we're in the 50s. We obviously have our own ideas that we put onto it, but we still have to have an understanding of the fact, the climate in which it was written. And if it's still provoking conversation and thought and engagement and interest, and then making people then go and maybe pick up your book, Marion, who want to know like the facts behind things that happened at certain times, then I'm all for it. And it's obviously still hugely captivating. I mean, I went in and spoke to one of our higher English classes a couple of weeks ago about the Witches of Scotland podcast, because they're doing The Crucible, and I could see that the kids were then making a connection and kind of going, right, okay, this isn't an irrelevance. Even though it's set in those years and it was written in those years, there is a link to Scotland and my experience and who I am. And that's what a good writer does, isn't it? Is that you link up your story with all the stories, and it's all human experience.
Yes. And it is a wonderful play. I really would say to people, if you can get down to London and see it, or if it can go on tour, which would be fantastic, try and get to see this production, because I've seen The Crucible before, and like you, Zoe, I've taught it as well. And it had come to feel like a little bit like, oh, that again.
Yeah.
But this really brought new wind into its sails. I thought it was a fantastic production.
Oh, I'd love to see it. I'm really hoping to get down to that big city of London. And
fingers crossed if you can.
Yeah. I don't know how long it's on for. Have either of you two got any idea?
I don't know. I'm really hoping it will run, but I've no idea.
We'll put a link to whatever we can find out, so that if you're listening to this and you think, well, I might be able to plan that, let's see if we can find out. But I mean, I know that I'm down in, is it October that we're down in London, Claire? I mean, I know you're there at the moment, but we're down there for that event at the British Library. So if it's still on then, maybe I'll see it then, if not before. But it's amazing to make that connection between the stories that you're telling through history and them being real people. And that, after all, is what we're doing with our campaign, is that we want people to make that connection and think, this isn't just the name of a person. This was an actual person in an actual community. Here's the parallel of things that are happening now, so that people get involved with it and say, right, we're better than this, and be a bit more.
That's the idea. Yeah. To present each individual with as much empathy as possible and with as much factual detail as I could possibly find about them.
Can I ask you, can I push you? It's like Jeremy Paxman. Can I push you now? Not really. To tell us, of the 13, what's your favourite trial, for whatever reason?
I think it's the first one. Yeah, I have thought about this, and there are, it's like Desert Island Discs, isn't it? Can I keep about 3 or 4, please? But no, if I have to really whittle it down, I think I would say the first one, Helena, because I didn't know a massive amount about that case. I knew, as people do, a lot more about Heinrich than I did about the women who he accused, because that's how history has been working up to this point, and it really shouldn't. But when I was looking at Helena, I was so impressed by her. She's so noisy. She won't shut up. She keeps heaping insults on her persecutor. You get the sense that she was a woman with strong religious views and with a strong personality and a strong, very strong sense of her own innocence and the innocence of the women who were accused alongside her. They were all women in this case. Yeah. And I was so impressed by her. I didn't feel like I could get to know her in quite the way that I wanted. I mean, somebody perhaps one day will turn up more records about her, I don't know. But there was enough there to hear that woman's voice, even though it was 7 centuries ago. So I'd keep Helena if I could, out of all of them, I think.
It's amazing what keeps turning up, I think, with research documents sometime. We've just recently had Judith Langland Scott on. We've just interviewed her, and she's discovered, and I can say this because she's tweeted about this, that she has now discovered and confirmed where, now my understanding of this is, the only convicted witch in Scotland where her body resides. So she's confirmed where that is, which is something that she's just discovered in the last sort of few weeks. So there is still things that are there. There are things in different areas that are being confirmed with things. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think we ever know it all. I really don't. I think there is so much to discover. And the more people go into archives and poke about looking for individual names, the better.
And what she's also discovered, Marion, with her research as citizen academic as she is that she has increased the numbers in her small village in Forfar from something like 42 to 52 or something around that. It might not be exactly. Sorry, Judith. Judith will be listening to this going, I know the exact amount. But it was an appreciable number of additional names of people that had been accused of witchcraft. And you just think, if you multiply that right across Scotland, then the estimate of 4,000 people being accused is very low. And the reason that we get that estimate is from the work that's been done before by academics. And in the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, in the introduction, it actually says, basically, we've been limited by time and money. So we've taken the obvious routes to identify when people have been accused of witchcraft, and here they are and here are their names. But that caveat thrown up at the start is clear that if somebody had a lot more money and a lot more ability to go through, they may uncover different names, like Judith, who follows the money, who goes to the town records and finds out how many candles were burned to keep people awake, how gruesomely, how long the rope was, that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's so much more to find. I really do. And it is about time and money, and the amount of time and money that people can put into research. We all do our bit, and then somebody else does some more, and then somebody else does a bit more, and somebody finds something by chance. And it's this wonderful cumulative process.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like that. And I also like the fact that because of the internet and things that are being digitized and so on, that there's people who are not traditional historians that are finding out something about maybe their own family line that then brings something to light that can be shared and can just be another little piece in the jigsaw. It's really cool.
Yes, it really is. I think family historians have a lot to bring to this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So what's next for you?
Oh, well, I know already. This is the thing, you know, people start asking
You're
me. And then
prolific.
I know. I'm tired.
Am I right in thinking that since we had you on last time, you've had another book out as well in that time? So
There was the Witches of St. Osyth, wasn't there? Did I
don't think we've spoken to you about that, because I think when we had you on last time, that was about to come out. So we'll have to, can we have you back on again to talk about the Witches?
Yes, all right. Yes.
Yes.
You can do a retrospective on that one,
because it's not the sort of thing where people go, oh, well, that's past now, we're not interested. It's, you know, again, it'll be on the reading list and people go, for God's sake, another bloody book.
It's a fab story. Oh, you're going to love that one. Yeah.
Well, give us a taster. Marion, give us a taster for next time.
So the next one, So, if we're talking about
give us a taster of your previous book that you can speak to us about the next time.
The Witches of St. Osyth is a fabulous, detailed story. This is one case that I talk about in this book. And this is a group of people who were accused in Essex in 1582. And there's a pamphlet about them, you know, so a kind of early modern news account of their story. And just as we've been saying really just now, I was able to find out a whole heap of stuff about those individuals which nobody looked for before, essentially by using the methods of the family historian and going back to the parish registers and, you know, picking through deeds and wills and manor records and all that kind of thing. Oh, it's a great story.
Judith, how cool is it to uncover stuff that people haven't known about for hundreds of years and think, I'm the person that knows that? That must be amazing.
It is amazing, and I feel, I just feel so happy every time that happens. It sort of brings tears to my eyes. I'm so happy. I have found this woman. I have found something about her that nobody knew and would have made such a difference to her story and the way that it's been told if they had known that.
Do you think people in thousands of years' time will uncover the Witches of Scotland podcast and say, we have found Marion, Claire and Zoe?
Yes, and here they are. Here they are, suffering through their research. Look at them.
Away. And there'll be people in 3,000 years' time going, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
I know. I remember you saying that previous. I don't know if it was in the speech you made to the Scottish Parliament when you were giving evidence. I think it might have been. And I do remember you saying that. Are we going to look back on this and think nothing was that different? Yes, things had changed to some extent, but really, had they underlyingly changed? Were we not still scapegoating and persecuting people, particularly women in some cases? And that was, I thought that was a very insightful thing that you said there.
Yeah. There's no better point to stop on, I think, there, Zoe.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I mean, like Claire and I sometimes talk about what will our next campaign be, but it would have to be another campaign that related to women, you know, and it would probably be a modern day thing about violence against women, because it never fucking changes. I'm sorry to swear, but it never changes.
Don't you apologise, Zoe? It's the very, very least we would be swearing at this particular stage in the
justifiable. It's justifiable to swear. Yeah.
I think so. Anyway. I really do.
But Marion, it's been an absolute treat to have you back on. I'm really glad that we've got you secured to come back again.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you.
Excellent. Well, have a lovely summer, and our listeners can find various books that you've written, but particularly this new one. Tell us the title again so they know exactly who to ask for in the shop.
So this is Witchcraft, A History in 13 Trials.
Great title. Really good title. For various reasons. So go and look that up, listeners. And thank you once again, Professor Marion Gibson.
Thank you, Zoe.
Marion.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Can't wait. See you. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this particularly ramblingly introduced episode. I feel like that's maybe one of the longer intros we've ever done, Claire. And I hope that you all have enough sense to just fast forward to to when the guest comes on, because I think I probably would. But it's been really nice having you all here again. Hi. Hello.
Hi, everyone. We're so sorry. And I mean, you know, I think we should do, you know how we're continually surprised by how many podcasts we've done? Should we continually promise that we're going to do another edition every 2 weeks at the end?
I think we should promise that, and we should really mean it, which we always do, but we should really make it actually happen also.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We thought the last time if we said it, it would definitely prompt it to happen. But we're just very busy ladies.
We are. We're not just sitting around. Life is bananas. But we will get another one out sharpish.
Yeah.
And I really hope you enjoyed this one, because we really enjoyed recording with Marion. She was really, really great and is definitely worth going to see. She's like really fascinating and just very wise and has a nice way of communicating.
A wise woman.
Yes.
I don't know, Zoe. I mean, I know like I'm doing like various things, endlessly scrolling on TikTok, that sort of thing. But I mean, quite a lot of your time, so you tell me, is still taken up with raccoon and raven training.
Yes, right. But I've got them to a stage now where I've got them doing small administrative tasks for me, which is quite useful. If we could just train them to speak, we could get them to do the intro and the outro. Have you thought about that?
Administrative tasks, Zoe.
Yeah, like
responding to emails.
I'm selling a lot of stuff on Vinted just now, so they're able to go down and deliver it to the Yodel thing at the co-op.
Shameless plug.
No, I don't have like a shop or anything. It's just stuff that I'm just trying to clear my house out a little bit. But that sort of thing. They're quite useful in that way.
Yeah. I mean, as a thing to be able to do, taking your stuff to the post office, I mean, that's as useful as anything else.
Yeah, the two of the ravens carry the package in between them if it's like reasonably sized. I just tie the instructions around their ankle.
I think the next thing,
QR code on its phone.
I think the next thing that you should do is train 3 of them to stand on top of one another, put a raincoat on them, and go and fill up your car with petrol.
Go and look outside your window, Claire. I've done that very thing just now. See them out.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to bring a short close to this podcast. Yes. I have to go and regard some raccoons.
It's so rambly. Right. Okay, Claire, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Listeners, thank you for bearing with us in this very difficult point in our lives. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Well, you'll hear from us in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if you see us in 2 weeks, then it does mean we've tracked you down.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to learn more about the Witches of Scotland, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Sign up for our mailing list at www.witchesofscotland.com to keep updated with the campaign. On that site, you'll be able to find how to link with us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram.